Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Senior Crafternoon. Today we're going to be learning how to wire wrap stones. I'm going to start by going over everything you have in your kit. You should have a few loose stones. You'll have 5 or 6 feet of this 22 gauge silver wire. You should have a chain, and you should have some pliers. So mine look a little bit different. Yours will match, but these are some wire cutters. We have flat nose pliers, and then we have round nose pliers. So I'm going to go over 2 different techniques for wrapping your stones. You have a few options in your bag, so you just decide which technique you want to use for each one. I'm going to show you the easiest one first, and that's basically just to make a loop at the top and then wrap the wire around it. There's no specific order to it. You just want to make sure that the stone stays put. The other one, we'll do the second, makes kind of a cage around the stone. This is a little bit more difficult because you're working with 2 wires instead of 1 and also trying to hold the stone in place. So this one takes a little bit more practice, and it works a little bit better with stones that are more flat, but you can do it with a round stone as well. It's a little bit more slippery. So I'm going to cut myself some wire. And I know the wire is pretty long, so let's see. I'm going to cut about 1.5 feet. Well, let's see. This is probably closer to 2 feet. It's in between 1.5 feet and 2 feet. So the first thing we're going to do is make our loop. So you're going to take your wire, and find one end, leave about 1.5 inches here before you bend it, and you're just going to take your flat nose pliers and bend it at a 90-degree angle. After that, you're going to take your round nose pliers, and coming up here near the top, so we're at the widest part of the pliers down here, just hold it like this, and you can either grab your pliers or use your hands. For this, I usually just use my hands and just pull this around. What we're doing is just making a loop. And so now we're just going to twist it to finish the loop off. So this is what you end up with. And now we're going to wrap this little piece around here. So grab your pliers. I'm going to use my flat nose in my left hand because I'm right-handed. And then you're going to use the other set of pliers to grab this end and wrap it around here. Just a couple of times is fine. You just don't want it moving around. Okay, so we've got our loop. So this is how we're going to attach it to the necklace. And I'm just trimming off the extra. When you're making your loop, I should have got my necklace out here. You just want to make sure that it is big enough to pass through one of the ends of the clasp. So this is too wide to go through it, but this end should go through fine. So you may want to look at this before you work and just make sure that your loop is bigger than this little circle here. So once you've got your wire done, you want to pick one of your stones. And you can have it go any direction you'd like. Mine's kind of flat on the back, so I'm going to sit that up against the wire, and hopefully that'll keep it in place. And you'll just start wrapping and working your way around the stone. It's difficult to see what you're doing as you're going because the stone wants to slip out. But just do your best to keep it in place. You want to make sure that it doesn't slip out. So this wire is a little bit stiffer. There are some that you can get in different gauges that are even stiffer, and then some that are really fine. So I think this one I used a different gauge. So it's just up to you. If this seems like it's too hard to manipulate, you'll want to go up. So this one was 22 gauges. So if you go up to 24 or 26, each time you move up, the wire will get thinner. And then as you go down, so if you were to use a 20 or 18 gauge instead of this 22, then the wire would be even thicker. But this, I think, is a good mix. You can move it with your hands, but it's also not so stiff that it's difficult to work with. So once you get towards the end, you want to make sure you don't wrap this all the way around the stone, because you do need a tail here to wrap around the top. And so you're just going to wrap it around a couple of times to make sure it stays in place, and then cut it. And then use your pliers to tuck that end under so it's not stabbing you or snagging your clothes. Okay, so this is one of them. And then at this point you can add it to your chain. And if you don't like how it sits, you can move it. So I'm gonna twist this so that when I wear it, the stone will lie flat. Okay, so there's one. And next we're going to work on this style. Alright, so now we're going to work on this type. So you can do this on any type of stone. I just find that it's a little bit easier to work with the elongated ones when you're doing this style, but you can also, you can do it on any shape. So with this one we're going to be working with 2 wires instead of 1, which makes it a little bit trickier. When we're doing this, you do want to keep in mind the shape of the stone. So this one is more narrow on one side, so I put that on the bottom. If I'd had it flipped and I'd done this and had the wider part down here, I could get done with it and then it would just slip right out because the wire isn't tight enough up here to hold on to it. So you're going to cut a couple of pieces of wire, about 12 to 15 inches a piece. I would go a little bit longer just in case, so more like 15 if you haven't done this before, just so there's a little bit extra. So we've got our 2 wires and you want them to be even. And so you line them up, and then near the middle, you can measure it if you want to be precise. I'm just eyeballing it. You're going to twist the 2 wires together. Just a few times. You don't have to do it a bunch. Okay, so we've got our wire twisted. And you want to separate these 4 ends here. So this is going to be the bottom of our basket. So what we're making is one of these sides here. So now we're going to move on to the other side. Alright, and I'm looking at my stone, and this one looks a little bit wider on the top, and it's also got a weird little notch here that should help the wire stick to it. So I'm going to stick it this way. And then we've got our 2 bottom wires, and we're going to wrap them around. So this is going to sit up against this here on one side, and then you're wrapping this around. So you just want to pull each end. So you see there because my finger is going to be covering this up. And you just want to keep these two out of the way. And now you're going to wrap these two together. And make sure you're close to the stone when you do that. And you just want to wrap it around however many times you did before, so you want it to match. Okay, so you can see one side is wrapped and now we've got the other side. And you just want to pull it up so that now you have wire on both sides. Now, you still have your 4 separate wires. You're going to take one from the right side and one from the right side and one from the left side, and pull them to the front, and you're going to wrap these two together. So keep them as tight as you can. So you've wrapped it around a few times. You can see the front now has some wire. You're going to turn it over and do the same thing on the back side with the 2 wires that were back there. Alright. And it's going to, how many times you do this will totally depend on the stone that you have. So if you start running out of space, you don't have to keep wrapping. But I'm going to do one more pass at this. So now I've got these 2 over here and these 2 on this side. And I'm just going to do one more. So on that side, flip it over and do the same thing. Okay, now you've got the whole thing wrapped and it's time to finish it off. So there are a couple of ways you can do this. You can make a loop here like we did with the first stone. So you can just make a loop and then these other tail ends, wrap them around the base of the loop. Or there's another way you can do it where there's more, where you pretty much use up all the rest of the wire. So we're going to do that. You basically just keep wrapping this until you get near the end. Okay, so I'm going to trim this. Okay. So we're going to make a loop, just like we did before. So bend it, grab your round nose pliers, and make your circle. And then wrap this around a few times. Trim off the extra. So we've got our hoop, and you can see with the wire twisted it just looks a little bit more interesting. So you can do the same thing on this side. You can twist and twist and twist and then wrap it around here to finish it off, or you can just finish this off by wrapping each one around. Let's see. So I'm just going on opposite sides here to do this. And then we've got our tails, and we'll just trim those. And just like before, take one of your sets of pliers and just pinch the ends so that they're stuck in there. Right. And now I just want to make sure it doesn't come out. So that is the second type. A little bit more difficult, but depending on the type of stone, sometimes you may prefer that to the other way. There are all types of ways to wrap stones. If you go on Pinterest and look up stone wrapping, you can see different ways you can do it. You can incorporate beads and add all sorts of other elements to it. But these are just two basic ways you can wrap stones. So I hope you enjoyed today's craft. If you have any questions, or if you have trouble with it, you can email me. If you ended up needing more wire because something happened when you were wrapping, send me a message, and I do have some extra that I can send with you. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.